So I'm going to ask you a question right now that you've probably never been asked, and I certainly haven't been asked. What are the top 10 funniest moments of your life? This is a really hard question to answer, but it's so much fun to think about, and you'll find yourself cracking up, even if you don't decide to do a video response. Just try to make a list. This was inspired because last night I was talking to my son Grant, who at 7 has this like uncanny ability to watch a movie or TV show and grab onto a quote and then drop it at like exactly the right time. And we were counting in San Francisco this guy who had this like mustache that was like pointing straight out, and he's walking by, and Grant, you know, notices this guy, and I'm fixated on Grant to watch his reaction, and it's just sort of this like innocent childhood gaze that goes from, you know, amusement to joy. And the man starts wiggling the mustache like a propeller, and all of us just broke out in laughter. So as we're talking about this last night, I say to Grant, you know, you're one of those people that would, you know, instead of looking away at a moment that's odd, you know, you just savor it, like if you ran into a midget. And he immediately, without hesitation, drops a quote from Elf. "You're an angry little elf, aren't you?" So that made me think, you know, okay, this is definitely going down on the list of funny moments. So here they are, in no particular order. And I know that some of these are going to be, you had to be there moments. Because it's sometimes hard to really relay the manic laughter that goes along with moments. But I'm going to try. Top 10 funniest moments. And the answer would differ. You know, I mean, I'm sure if you asked me tomorrow, I'd remember 10 other ones. But here they are for now. Number 1, speaking of midgets, I'm on my first date with wife of Nalts, and we're going to go we're going to go have a picnic. And we go into the store to buy some sandwiches, and there's a midget. Now, this is a big moment of self-revelation because, you know, I don't want her to think that I think this is funny. You know, there's nothing funny. It's the way the guy was born, so I want to keep it real. Maybe I should ignore the guy. And I look over at her, and she's suppressing laughter and holding in giggles, at which point I just like erupt with, we had to get out of the store, and we laughed for like 20 minutes, totally out of guilt that we're laughing at a poor midget. Number 2, it's 1996, and I'm working with a bunch of misfits. We were convinced that all of us at this training company were actually hallucinating, and we were really institutionalized. It was that kind of work environment. And our boss at the time was fixated on the latest technology and would love to boast his prowess of his latest toy. So he's sitting there playing with, Rob Brodo's playing with this new BlackBerry. No, it was a Palm Pilot. It was like, you know, one of those huge early versions, and he's, you know, showing us how he can do the little signature. And this thing's like a tank, and he's got a belt strap for it, you know, one of the little belt things, which now makes it even bigger. So we all decided to walk into a meeting with random giant metal objects strapped to our belt to spoof him. He never wore that belt thing again. Maybe you had to be there. Okay, number 3, cut back to young teenager Kevin at Red Arrow Camp, and Chris Farley went there. Whoops, did I drop a name? But the best moment was when Eric, this Spanish kid, who had a terrible temper and would chase us around with a broom, and we would try to provoke him for the sheer ecstasy of having him chase us with this broom. And he comes hauling toward us, you know, holding the broom horizontally, and wedges himself between 2 bunk beds and completely flops backward. And all of us, including Eric, burst into spontaneous laughter. Okay, number 4, Cindy Ladder, okay, who was like a childhood neighbor, and it was one of those people who just had like this unbridled sort of enthusiasm. It could turn any ordinary mundane moment into something hysterical. We collected a whole cup of doodlebugs, and she, I think on purpose, just spilled these out on our kitchen floor. And if you could see the look of my parents as these doodlebugs, you know, transform from their little rolled up position and, you know, and just start scattering about. But even funnier was every day after Christmas, she would drag one of the Christmas trees from the garbage and place it into her next door neighbor's yard, so that by the end of, you know, the weeks after Christmas, there was a whole stack of Christmas trees that I'm sure this person had no idea where they were coming from. Number 5, you know, if there's such thing as inheriting humor, and I have an ounce of it, it's all owed to Jimmy Hanneman, my grandfather, who owned a tire company down in a little garage in New Orleans. And he would complain because all of our cousins would kick him under the table constantly. And one day Mary, my cousin, was kicking him, and he was complaining. And the next day he shows up in long pants, and nobody's talking much about the day before. But then somebody asks, how he's doing after all the kicking. At which point he lifts up his legs and reveals dabs of methylate. Remember that red stuff that would burn more than any injury it was meant to heal? And he covered his leg with it as a joke. But what was so funny about this moment is that my brother Chris later said to me that he's pretty sure that had somebody not asked, that our grandfather would have just never showed that he had jokingly put methylate all over his leg, and I think he's right. Walks home from grade school were the best, and I had a buddy named Mason McCarthy who, we have like so many little stories of us walking home, but none as funny as when he was annoyed, Mason, by this barking dog, and so he proceeded to kick the fence to agitate this dog, and this went on for a little while until I noticed this older, very menacing guy walk out, and Mason is paying no attention to me as I'm trying to rattle his attention toward this guy who's busting him, because he's just having a ball kicking. And finally the guy gets up to the fence and says to Mason, "I don't think your mama would want you going home with a fat lip." And Mason takes one look up and just hauls like 3 blocks. So I chase after him, and we ended up laughing for like 20 minutes the whole episode. Number 7. Mason and I had a friend named David. We used to call him Davis, and his parents hated that. But David had one of these like really ornate, oversized, overly formal jackets in the winter that he'd wear. And we were all like playing in like mud puddles, and it's just seeped with mud. In New Orleans we don't get snow, just mud. So there's this piece of plywood, and Mason decides to make a dive for the plywood and make a safe landing outside of the mud. But what happens? The plywood just sails right across the mud, and Davis is now basked in mud all over his jacket. Now that was funny in and of itself, but what was even better is that like a week later he comes back having been chastised by his parents and wearing now a dry clean jacket, all fresh and clean. He decides to reenact the moment for those that missed it in slow motion, but does it again. It drops right back into the mud. Davis got the biggest butt kicking of the night. Okay, number 8. My dad, who died this summer, was like sort of very faithful, sometimes stern guy. And so when he did let his guard down and drop a joke, it had exponential impact. And we're all packed, my family, parents and 4 siblings and me, into this tiny little stinking elevator in this terrible hotel in France. And it's rattling, and we're all stuck inside of there. And there's this awkward moment of silence until my dad says, somebody fart and make it smell better in here." Oh, you had to be there? I don't know. At Georgetown, I was in charge of, like, my first marketing experience, I was in charge of promoting this pig roast. So we're going to take this giant pig and roast it and carve it up for the classmates. And so I've got these volunteers handing out flyers that announce the pig roast. And Justin, one of the volunteers who later became a real close friend, was handing out the flyers to pretty women on the Georgetown campus, and he would shout at them, "Pig!" and then hand them the flyer. And Justin was taking so much joy in the fact that he had an excuse just to look at a woman and call her a pig. And the shock. Okay. Anyway, number 10. Thompson likes, one of my closest childhood friends. He and I are like hungover, and we're going to go skydiving. And we're in the car, and we pull up to McDonald's. I need a couple Egg McMuffins. And the woman says, "Would you like to try our new breakfast burrito?" And Thompson, without a beat, drops the simple quote, and I don't know why I found that so funny. It was just like, that's our answer to this concept you call a breakfast burrito. So there's my attempt at revealing some of the funniest moments. Probably not the funniest moments, but a few. And I hope that some of them are transferable. But seriously, take a moment to try to make a list of yourself. I guarantee you it will be a moment of levity, and you'll end up cracking yourself up. And if you do a video reply, all the better. We'll see if you can bring some joyful memories to others. What is it? Patrick taught me that.